Dokie. So welcome to School for Course in Miracles. My name is Bruce Rawles, and tonight, courtesy of School for Course in Miracles and this wonderful community that we have, thanks again to Tim and Lynn for putting this together, we're going to talk about 3 different sections from the Manual for Teachers. And I actually realized a couple hours ago that I had in my notes number 24, and then I realized, and I looked at them more carefully, and said, oh, and 25 and 26 too. So anyway, just quickly reread those a couple of times, and discovered, oh yeah, there's some good stuff in there too. But I thought, well, there's plenty of material just in number 24 that could easily take up the hour. So anyway, but we'll cover them all. The first one is Reincarnation So, which is section 24 in the back of the book. And I had fun thinking about this one because I actually, Tim, can we do the screen share? Can I do a screen share? Okay, I'm going to do a little kind of a different kind of meditation here. This is going to be sort of an eyes open meditation. I thought I'd have a little visual here. It would be fun to do. And let's see if I can get this going here. And I'm actually going to not bother with the audio, but I'm instead going to read over the top of it. But let's see here. Okay, so let's do a share screen right there. And I'm going to just read some stuff about what changes and what doesn't change, in particular with the emphasis on the dream figures that we think we are, that we call the body. So can everybody see that that window there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I ran across this some years ago, and I thought, well, this is kind of a good visual metaphor for what seems to change all the time, even though it seems more slowly within one lifetime. In a bigger perspective, just to back it up, we think that we live in a world where not only are our bodies constantly changing, but the world around us constantly changes. And I was thinking about, well, what's the idea of reincarnation? And it seems like we think like maybe once a century, give or take, we pop in and out of bodies if we believe that. But 24 hours a day, or every 24 hours rather, we wake up and usually, at least that's been my experience, you wake up in pretty much the same body. I mean, if we didn't, we'd probably be a little freaked out. But that's kind of the more short-term reincarnation. But then I was thinking about modern physics that tells us that the universe that we made up winks in and out of existence about 10 to the 44th times per second. So we're sort of like reincarnating at an unimaginably fast rate, stroboscopically. The imaginary universe that we made up, at least my understanding of physics, is that it pulses off and on about 10 to the 44th times per second, which is so vast it's hard to imagine. If you think of a movie that's 24 frames per second, or a video screen that's 30 or 60 times per second, imagine 10 to the 1 with 44 zeros after it, that many times per second. That's how the way I like to think of it is, that's how desperate our egos are to make a holographic movie that's convincing, that we will buy into. So speaking of holographic movies, I'm just going to play this short clip. It's just under 3 minutes, and I'm going to read just a few things from the course that I think relate to it. These eyes made not to see will never see. For the idea that they represent left not its maker, and it is their maker that sees through them. What was its maker's goal but not to see? For this the body's eyes are perfect means, but not for seeing. See how the body's eyes rest on externals and cannot go beyond. Watch how they stop at nothingness, unable to go beyond the form to meaning. Nothing so blinding as perception of form. For sight of form means understanding has been obscured. Salvation does not ask that you behold the spirit and perceive the body not. It merely asks that this should be your choice. For you can see the body without help, but do not understand how to behold a world apart from it. It is your world salvation will undo and let you see another world your eyes could never find. At no single instant does the body exist at all. It is always remembered or anticipated, but never experienced just now. Only its past and future make it seem real. Time controls it entirely, for sin is never wholly in the present. In any single instant, the attraction of guilt would be experienced as pain and nothing else and would be avoided. It has no attraction now. Its whole attraction is imaginary and therefore must be thought of in the past or in the future. The body cannot know. And while you limit your awareness to its tiny senses, you will not see the grandeur that surrounds you. God cannot come into a body, nor can you join him there. Limits on love will always seem to shut him out and keep you apart from him. The body is a tiny fence around a little part of a glorious and complete idea. It draws a circle, infinitely small, around a very little segment of heaven, splintered from the whole, proclaiming that within it is your kingdom where God can enter not. The Holy Spirit guarantees that what God willed and gave you shall be yours. This is your purpose now, and the vision that makes it yours is ready to be given. You have the vision that enables you to see the body not, and as you look upon your brother, you will see an altar to your Father, holy as heaven, glowing with radiant purity and sparkling with the shining lilies you laid upon it. What can you value more than this? Why do you think the body is a better home, a safer shelter for God's Son? Why would you rather look on it than on the truth? How can the engine of destruction be preferred and chosen to replace the holy home the Holy Spirit offers, where he will dwell with you? So we can just now, if you feel so inspired, close your eyes for a moment or two and just think about how we are blinded by the perception of form, including all the seeming incarnations we have moment to moment. Thanks. Okay. All right. So meanwhile, back at the dream of form, anyone have any thoughts about that exercise or comments?
That was amazing.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of fun to realize how many different forms we disguise our real identity in, and how easy it is to get caught up in the seeming specifics. And if we can, just keep listening to Holy Spirit, we can learn to generalize and see that behind every form, the same Spirit resides. And
I noticed myself how form can be very alluring no matter what it is, if it's a person, a car, what have you.
Mhm.
And that is just an incentive for the ego to look outside itself and be mindless. But I thought I saw Chris in there somewhere.
Okay.
One of the morphs. It's like all of a sudden Chris appeared.
All right.
So
Marissa,
somebody at
you're the-
school
Oh.
told me recently they thought I looked like Captain Kangaroo.
There is a little, no, maybe not. It's been a long time.
More handsome than that.
Wait a
And
minute.
Marissa, you were morphing and growing
did it say, like,
angels' wings.
Is that right, Lorraine?
Yes.
Did a kid say that or did an adult say that?
A good friend of mine, adult, said that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the
Yeah,
kids
folks,
would-
they don't know Captain Kangaroo.
I was going to say, how would they know? Right?
Yeah.
Except for time travel, maybe in a past
Well,
life.
yeah.
How's that for a segue? Yeah, what that little clip reminds me of too is if anybody read, I'm going to make a couple of quick references to Gary Renard's fourth book, Lifetimes When Jesus and Buddha Knew Each Other. I think it's in a previous book where he's shown all of his past lives and like a second with each one, which is kind of similar to that little video clip. But it's like if we can just remember that right now, the form that I'm taking, that you're taking, is a transitory illusion, and behind the form, beyond the form, there's an awareness that watches patiently, waiting for us to, leave the arcade, leave the theater, leave the play, and doesn't require that we, it's not a demand, but it's a request that really comes from within ourselves to look without condemnation. I think that's one of the easiest ways to get out of it is because any kind of specialness really is actually a veiled condemnation. And in that fourth book where he talks about the lifetimes of Jesus, Buddha, and also Mary Magdalene, going through these different lifetimes, I thought what was really helpful about it was it basically it gave the example that we're all working together to look at all the specifics and give them over to the Holy Spirit, and to practice more and more consistently looking with forgiveness on all the specific forms and learning to generalize. So anyway, and with that introduction, I thought it might be good now to actually read this. Well, actually, a couple more quotes about the body, which I think are pretty useful. I'm just going to read really quickly the section from the workbook in part 2, the what is the body section, because I think that fits really nicely with the idea that we could actually ever be incarcerated or incarnated, kind of the same thing, if you will, into a body. So in the manual, it's I think it's the 5th section in the what is. And we can talk about this too, of course. What is the body? The body is a fence the Son of God imagines he has built to separate parts of himself from the other parts. It is within this fence he thinks he lives, to die as it decays and crumbles. For within this fence he thinks that he is safe from love. Identifying with his safety, he regards himself as what his safety is. How else could he be certain he remains within the body, keeping love outside? And I just figure if we're using this shell or this barrier, this boundary, this artificial set of constraints that seems to define a self and a not self as separate things, as long as we're doing that, we're keeping love outside. We're maintaining the belief in separation. And I was just now thinking about today's workbook lesson number 79. It's like, recognize the problem so it can be solved. Well, the only problem is that we still believe in separation. And what's the chief weapon in ego's arsenal is the idea that I've made up a separate self. And what's the poster child for that self is all these specific forms that seem to demand just unimaginable attention. But it does seem like over time we can not deny the patterns of photons on our retinas, but deny the ego's interpretation of them. The ego's interpretation is, I shattered perfect oneness, and the unconscious guilt for that is just intolerable. So we had to make a really convincing hologram to keep that dream going. So, any comments on that first paragraph? quiet bunch tonight. Would anyone like to read the second paragraph and comment it? I think Abby just may have been teleporting. Speaking of bodies coming and going. Would you like to read, Abby?
You're on 60 in the manual, right?
Yeah, I don't have the page number because I'm looking online, but it's number 5 in the what is. Is that page 60?
No,
Let me grab it real quick.
somebody will have to tell me what the page number is.
Okay. It is. It'll be about
425.
425. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just found it too.
4 1/4.
There you go.
The body will not stay. Yet this he sees as double safety. For the Son of God's impermanence is proof his fences work and do the task his mind assigns to them. For if his oneness still remained untouched, who could attack and who could be attacked? Who could be victor? Who could be his prey? Who could be victim? Who the murderer? And if he did not die, what proof is there that God's eternal Son can be destroyed? That's the safety, clinging to the body.
Mhm. It's a pretty crazy safety, huh? The ego's mock safety. Yeah.
To look at all the reasons, all the ways we don't want to let our specialness go,
Mhm.
and the purpose in holding on to our specialness.
Yeah. It seems like one way that we keep that specialness going is, well, several ways, but what comes to mind is grievances and not and withholding kindness, those kind of things.
And that all serves a beautiful purpose
Mhm.
of keeping us locked in the thought system of separation.
Yep.
What good am I without holding grievances? I don't exist if I don't hold grievances.
Isn't it amazing how we define ourselves not just by the forms, but by the stories that really then become crystallized as bodies, essentially.
Yeah.
And then we have scars and, battle scars and wounds of the stories that we tell ourselves and each other about the insults and injuries and slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that other bodies have inflicted on this body and that other bodies. And wow, what a crazy arcade game, huh? Yeah. Anyone up for paragraph 3? Bruce?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that paragraph 2. We coerced with the ego that we made up a God to destroy.
Mm-hmm.
And that only, and through that is how we maintain our identity. And it is through that we hold up our proof
Mm-hmm.
that we've taken over,
Yeah.
supposedly, an authority problem. But I'll read the next one, number 3.
Okay, thanks.
The body is a dream. Like other dreams, it sometimes seems to picture happiness, but can quite suddenly revert to fear, where every dream is born. For only love creates in truth, and truth can never. Made to be harmful, must the body serve the purpose given it. We can change the purpose that the body will obey by changing what we think that it is for. Yes, as soon as we created our dream figure in the secret dream, the next paragraph is the hero of the dream. And we made the body the hero of the dream, so it would maintain our identity in a body. Then Jesus faithfully says we can change the purpose that the body will obey by changing what we think that it is for. And hence we go to the Holy Spirit for help understanding that.
Yep. We're all calling out for help to save me from the hero of this dream that isn't very heroic, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Sakina, did you have your hand up a moment ago? No? Okay. Would you like to read the fourth paragraph? No? Okay. Who else might want to read?
Mine
Maya.
is waving.
Okay, Maya.
Yeah, I was just thinking before I read, it would be an interesting exercise looking at the number of times, hatch marking every time we notice fear disguised or identifiable as worry, annoyance, concern, and out fear, and just seeing how many times a day that we do that. And then also trying to notice the number of times we feel peaceful. I'll bet you the first would be way outnumbering the second. And that, and showing that this is the function of the body, demonstrating that.
Yeah, and it does seem like that's part of the motivational strategy, if you will, of the course, is to have us pay attention to that, not in any kind of coercive way, but gently just see how insane and incessant the ego drives us to demand punishment. Doesn't matter from or where, as long as there's some kind of guilt that is exacted and punishment meted out to make sure that there's a crime. And the Holy Spirit just waits peacefully, patiently, say, out of my courtroom, nothing happened, case dismissed. 24/7, every nanosecond, it's case dismissed, right? Every microsecond. Let's see, who would like to read the next one?
So I'll go ahead.
Okay, okay, thanks, Maya.
Go ahead and read. Paragraph 3, yeah? The body is a dream.
4, actually.
4?
Number 4.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. The body is the means by which God's Son returns to sanity. Though it was made to fence him into hell without escape, yet has the goal of heaven been exchanged for the pursuit of hell. The Son of God extends his hand to reach his brother and to help him walk along the road with him. Now is the body holy. Now it serves to heal the mind that it was made to kill. That second purpose is a far, far cry, or cry is not quite the right word, but from the first, from killing to healing. That's quite a range.
It really does seem like there's this whole spectrum, and and yet the Course reminds us that there's no order of difficulty, and there's no order of insanity. In fact, I read somewhere, when I think it was on one of the school's Facebook page, it was did I write it down here? Maybe it was somewhere else. I jotted it down earlier today, but it was something, maybe it was something Ken said that was just kind of struck me, that we really don't have any orders of craziness. There's just two choices, two purposes, two motives for everything: love or fear, or insanity and insanity. And we give them gradations only to make it seem like there's countless, and to keep the confusion and the fuzziness intact. But yet when we notice when we're feeling peaceful, it's like completely different than any of the permutations that the ego can muster. Huh? Even if it's just for a moment, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. I could see pieces. Yep.
And how quick we are to minimize the negative, irritation. Oh, it's just irritation. It's not rage, we as egos, we want there to be a hierarchy so that we won't be guilty of the extremes.
Right. Yep. I'm behind the cutoff line for the
Exactly.
being
This is
thrown into the
okay.
volcano or whatever.
Yeah, this is all right. This is
Yeah.
acceptable.
Uh-huh.
Mild irritation.
Really. Yeah.
Thanks.
Javiera.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hi. Because I'm learning some new things about trauma lately, I was there was an institute in the United States that made a study, and the conclusion was that we have an average between 12,000 and 16,000 thoughts during one day, and 85% of those are negative. And 95 of them are repetitive. So that 15% probably is the Holy Spirit. That is nothing. That is honestly nothing. And 95% of all of our thoughts are repetitive. So we are repeating and repeating scarcity, resentment, grievances, any kind of negative thought. That's really an incredible job to turn that. And I cannot do that without the Holy Spirit. So
Exactly. Yeah. How could any of us, right?
That's impossible for me.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, that's wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Well, to
Yeah.
make it worse, you ready? let's make it worse. If you're doing the positive thoughts without the Holy Spirit, it's still the ego. They're still negative. It's 100% negative.
I was going to say that study might have been overly optimistic, but still, you make a good point over here. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it's only when we really are completely free from any kind of specialness, substitution, and separation in any of those crazy ideas and all of their permutations and all of their incarnations, if you will, to tie it back to the topic, that we're really undoing. But the beauty of it is the Holy Spirit has our backs every step of the way, and we can moment to moment ask for that help. And the more we do ask for it, the more it becomes easy, and we can train our minds. The Course keeps reminding us that that an untrained mind can accomplish nothing, but that sort of implies like, well, does that mean that we can train our minds? Wow, what a concept. And we just need to keep practicing and just asking for help more and more consistently. Lorraine and then Maya.
Yeah, and the whole idea of, that the body's eyes have been genetically created to see difference.
Mm-hmm.
And with that difference automatically comes comparison, and how automatically we compare, and that creates more and more and more fragmentation of difference. It's like my fence is prettier than your fence, or your fence is taller than my fence.
And then we take offense and then we give offense, right? Exactly. Yeah. But they're all just fences, or they're all just, made up boundaries that don't have any reality. So who, oh, Maya? That's right.
Yeah, in response to Javiera's statistics, I was thinking that it isn't that Holy Spirit isn't broadcasting all the time, constantly. It's that where our rocket shrieking is successful in keeping it out. It's not like yeah, it's not like Holy Spirit's taking a break, and it's just that we are so good at blocking it. That's there lies the rub.
Yeah. The metaphor I kind of like too is it's sort of like we've got a movie with the ticker tape scrolling with the closed caption, and unlike most movies where you just have one closed caption scrolling past, we've got Holy Spirit's commentary and we got ego's commentary, and we can pay attention to either one, and at some point, I don't think we ever really completely turn off the volume on ego's commentary until the very end of the process in the course. But we can pay attention more to the Holy Spirit's interpretation of things instead of ego's misinterpretation of things more frequently. And just mostly by just noticing when we're not at peace, when I'm not comfortable, when I'm upset, I have to recognize I set it up. I take the up set and I move the up on the other side of the set, and then I realized it was a setup, and I set it up. Yeah.
Well, the good news about the 16,000 thoughts is the good news. If I do it with the Holy Spirit, that's 16,000 reflections of oneness, of love, of forgiveness. I do it with whether even if they're seemingly negative thoughts, I'll just smile at myself for doing it. I mean, the thought it's the same ticker tape. There's 85% negative, 15% seemingly positive. If I'm doing it with the ego, however, they're all going to be incarnations, of you will, of a separated self and the need to blame somebody else. It'll be 16,000 instances of reincarnation of the ego self.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you bring up a really good point, Tim, because it's the time scale of this particular, what we're about to get into in a moment, of the reincarceration, if you will, of the ego, or the release from it is irrelevant. It's the only moment that really makes sense is now, and that's the only one we really have access to. Even if we seem to be pulling stuff out of the past, it's always in the present, right? So, yep. That's helpful.
So the question becomes then, how do I watch the ticker tape through the eyes of the Holy Spirit? First of all, fess up that I might be watching it through the ego. And then how do I lay that down? And then how do I watch it through the vision of the Holy Spirit, which I think is what lesson 78, yesterday's lesson, was all about. If I'm watching through the ego's eyes, it has to be a grievance. There's only two purposes. One is a grievance, one is a miracle. If I'm watching the ticker tape through the eyes of the Holy Spirit, meaning I'm willing to lay down all of my grievances that I'm having about each of those 16,000 thoughts, then they all become like 16,000 miracles. That's pretty good in one day. 16,000 miracles, Javier. That's a good day.
Exactly. Anyone for the last paragraph?
Marissa's waving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I also wanted to comment on Javiera saying about the 16,000 thoughts and Tim's thoughtful comments. I was just reading today an old Q&A from the old days, and it was about Buddhism, how they try and go without thought. And what the Course helps us see is there's a reason thoughts come to us when we're trying, especially when we're trying to be quiet. Because they're purposive. And this one sentence stuck out. It just says, the answer we chose to think in order to keep the ego alive and well. The answer is we chose to think in order to keep the ego alive and well and keep the Holy Spirit's thoughtless, capital T thought, out of awareness. Thinking keeps that thought out of awareness, basically. So I hadn't thought of it as thoughtless thought, but that does make sense. Holy Spirit. that is.
Thoughtless with a lowercase t would make sense because it's no ego thought. It basically saying, I can look at all the specifics, all the ever-shifting forms and the ever-changing appearances, and see that those are irrelevant to the eternal essence that we all share, and the peace that is at the foundation of that eternal presence, right? Yeah.
It might be helpful at this point to point out the difference between brain thoughts and the 16,000 brain thoughts happening in our brains all the time, every day. But then all those 16,000 are going to reflect one of two internal thoughts in the mind, either the internal thought of ego and separation and blame, et cetera, or the internal thought of forgiveness and Holy Spirit, and or a reflection of heaven, basically. So I mean, in the mind, there are 16,000 thoughts, at least a day, on a good day. But there, all those 16,000 are only going to reflect either this or this, which really makes it pretty simple when we're thinking about how do I want to look at this particular thought I'm having right this second.
Yeah, I find it helpful to know that content is purpose and vice versa. That also helps me to realize the purpose behind it.
Two purposes, yeah, that's good. Good.
Did you want to read the 5th paragraph, Marissa?
Sure.
Okay.
So, you will identify with what you think will make you safe. Whatever it may be, you will believe that it is one with you. Your safety lies in truth and not in lies. Love is your safety. Fear does not exist. Identify with love and you are safe. Identify with love and you are home. Identify with love and find yourself.
And there's the content that we all want, huh? The purpose. Yep. Thanks. Any other comments on that section before we jump to Is Reincarnation So? So now we've kind of prefaced it with looking at the body. Nope. Okay. So this is in section 24 in the manual. And I thought there was a lot to this when I was rereading it a couple of days ago. I was like, wow, there's just a whole lot in this section. So I'll read the first paragraph.
First, it's page 60 in the manual for teachers in the back.
Thanks, Tim. In the ultimate sense, reincarnation, which I like to think of as re-incarceration, just for fun, is impossible. There is no past or future, and the idea of birth into a body has no meaning either once or many times. Reincarnation cannot then be true in any real sense. Our only question should be, is the concept helpful? Tying into what Marissa just said, what's the purpose? What's the content? And that depends, of course, on what it is used for. If it is used to strengthen the recognition of the eternal nature of life, it is helpful indeed. Is any other question about it really useful in lighting up the way? Like many other beliefs, it can be bitterly misused. At least such misuse offers preoccupation and perhaps pride in the past. At worst, it induces inertia in the present. In between, many kinds of folly are possible. And earlier, I was making a little doodle, and I was thinking about the wheel of misfortune and the un-merry-go-round on the lower left-hand corner of Ken's chart. Basically what the ego projects onto the world. And so, in terms of the specifics that seem to go around and around, we certainly have in any given day, in any given year, hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of things that vie for attention from the ego's point of view to keep us mindless and enslaved and infatuated with every little specific thing that becomes a special love-hate, target, basically. And I was thinking, well, you could also do that with the whole idea of reincarnation too, and that kind of zooming out in the time scale. And so I just made some some notes here of, does it matter if it's Cleopatra or Cinderella, Genghis Khan or Goofy, the biblical Jesus or this dream hero action figure that I call Brucifixion? That they're all part of the dream that's projected onto the world. The external dream that really reflects the secret dream that I believe is separation is real. So the idea of a reincarnation of a specific self, and I was thinking, is just basically, if it's, I like how this section says, if it's helpful, if it reinforces the idea of an eternal capital L life, but then that's way above the capital L life is at the very top of Ken's chart and in the heaven section, right? That has nothing to do with all the figures that seem to come and go, the endless parade of forms, right? So anyone want to read the second paragraph? Javiera? You're unmuted, but I'm not hearing you.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Can you
Okay.
see me now? Yeah.
Yes, now I can.
I'm not going to read. Thank you.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I would like to comment,
Sure.
share something. So 15 years ago, I think so, or 17 years ago, I used to smoke cigarette or cigar a lot, like 1 box per day, working as a journalist in coffee, and my cigar was a daily practice. And I tried to quit smoke so many times and I couldn't. It was impossible for me. And my sister one day in Chile, she asked me, hey, would you like to go with a friend who's learning how to, what do you call, go to past life regression? And I thought, okay, cool, why not? I want to try something different. And I went there and I saw some other lives in my brain. I still have the images. But what really caught my attention was when I woke up. Well, I didn't woke up. I was there. I was conscious about everything, but my eyes were closed and I was just in my mind traveling. And the interesting thing was that after that session, I quit smoke, but because I had the certainty that we are not alone. I had the clarity in my heart that there was something more than these physical things. And even though I was not trying to quit smoke at that time, just the feeling of there is something more about not just us, that really gave me the safety. So when you ask the question what you were reading, if the purpose is to find, I don't remember the word, but like unity, I think that there was a great purpose for me, even though it's magic is in this world, but it worked pretty well with me just because the certainty of there is something else out there, not just us. Yeah, just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yeah, and that something else is a shared awareness, a shared identity. We can describe it in a lot of different ways, or attempt to anyway. But the shared interest, it seems like kindness is a good word, I think, to describe it. As you're sharing that, I was reflecting back on this morning. I took our car into our mechanic to have an oil change, and I just remember thinking about how we're really the same, even though on so many levels we're different. this mechanic that we've been seeing for several years and taking our cars to, and it's like, but and we had this wonderful little conversation, and it was just a lot of, I mean, it's just a very pleasant exchange, and I was just thinking, yeah, and like everyone else, you know, the appearance is just it can be a communication. The body can be a tool for communication. I think that's what that the section we're just reading is. And so if we use each lifetime, if you will, or each day, each moment, doesn't matter the scale really, to see past the specifics. And I think that sounds like what the experience you might have had, Javier, is where you kind of look beyond the form to see something that was more profound and more real. And I think that's what we're doing with the course is just training our minds to notice what doesn't change, and allowing what does change to just flow past.
And the interesting thing is, after that experience, I never wanted to smoke again.
Yeah.
Nothing. So I think that what made me or helped me when I was smoking, it was my uncertainty that this is it. This world is everything. So I was so scared that I was smoking. I don't know why, but it was a nice experience. So
neat. Yeah, it seems like I've read that a lot of the help me with this for those who are more versed. Some of the hallucinogenic drugs are being used as addiction therapy, basically to show different levels of experience, kind of thing, in some controlled situations, that sort of thing. But it seemed like the idea that being that if you can see that there's a different reality other than the ego addiction that you happen to have found helpful, in heavy air quotes, more helpful, that is really the Holy Spirit's response that says, what if there's a way of looking at the world that's different, that doesn't see us as being at the mercy of the world, but rather being merciful to it. And then we're communicating something very different. Yeah.
But did you give up coffee too after that? I knew it.
One addiction at a time, right?
No, I had to quit both because coffee, I used to associate coffee and cigarette. So I quit both, and without any effort at all. And I mean, I smoked for 15 years. And that was 17 years ago. So I was really into that bad habit.
Seems like I've heard also the phrase, we outgrow things rather than overcome them. And it's almost like, when you are ready to let go of something that doesn't work, it's like it just becomes an obvious choice. And I think that's very much along the lines of the course's approach, is basically showing us that there's another way of using our mind that isn't feeding into specialness and differences, that is so much more fulfilling and peaceful, that when we do that consistently, there's no interest in the war at some point altogether. But we're all working toward that, I figure. Anyway,
I'm not sure. I think Marissa had something. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
I was just thinking that maybe, Javiera, that you changed the purpose of smoking, and it was filling a lack before, and you didn't need it anymore. Just like Helen didn't need to shop anymore at some point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great example. Yeah.
Does that mean I'm not going to need the course book one day?
And it is you, Tim. It is you.
Oh,
isn't it lesson 189 says, forget this world, forget this course? Is that the one? But I think the order might be important. We have to forget the world first, and then the course, probably the last thing that we set down, right? At least that's how I'm looking at it. Okay. So we didn't read the second paragraph yet, did we? I don't think so. Any volunteers for that? Lorraine.
Reincarnation would not, under any circumstances, be the problem to be dealt with now. If it were responsible for some of the difficulties the individual faces now, his task would still be only to escape from them now. If he is laying the groundwork for a future life, he can still work out his salvation only now. To some, there may be comfort in the concept, and if it heartens them, its value is self-evident. It is certain, however, that the way to salvation can be found by those who believe in reincarnation and by those who do not. The idea cannot, therefore, be regarded as essential to the curriculum. There is always some risk in seeing the present in terms of the past. There's always some good in any thought which strengthens the idea that life and the body are not the same. So he's being very diplomatic here and not going one way or the other. But yeah, I actually did a past life regression as well. And the way the practitioner had us go about it, and this was a long time ago, was she asks you, what is something in the present that you don't seem to have a resolution for, and perhaps it's related to something in a past life. And then she took us through this hypnotic process to bring forth this life that supposedly held the answer to your question, why, what is it that happened then that's the reason for me now, experiencing this. So when he talks about it there, about, bringing something from the past into the present, and that's not what the Course wants to do.
Yeah,
although, I mean, I think that in a way we do that when we're doing a forgiveness process and we're trying to, if we're really challenged by letting it go, to go back and see what is this feeling, this thought related to, what belief, and it's in the past, which isn't real, but we're still having to, for me, I find that helpful to clear things.
Yeah, and again, it boils down to purpose. What is it for? And as Marissa was talking about a moment ago, and that whole, I think, now appears several times in that paragraph too. But it's always now. The Course says, even if we pull things in from what we think of as the past, we're pulling them in now, and so it's our choice of teacher now at every given moment that makes the difference, right? Yeah. Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, along with what Lorraine was saying, and you were saying, Ken Wapnick says that everything is just a deja vu, and we are constantly reliving our script. And so, as far as reincarnation goes, there's a different twist to it in the Course, because we are reliving our lives in order to break the blocks to our awareness, to the love of what we are. So we relive these scripts in order to forgive. And when we do that, truly, we forgive in the night. It cannot be any other way. But that script comes back to us if we can't forgive completely. It'll come back and it'll come back until we finally can get help and understand what this particular script has been holding me back for. What's the purpose? And so reincarnation takes takes a different type of twist to it for me, because I look at it as if we haven't really went through all our forgiveness lessons to the place of where God picks us up, we keep reliving these situations, but it's not a reincarnated type of action in my mind. You know, it's just a place in the dream that we come back to. And therefore, it being a dream, that in itself is what we want to do. Forgive to leave the dream. So
Yeah, the whole purpose of the course is not to make a better dream, but to wake up from it. So I was thinking about the world again, the lower left corner of Tim's and Ken's wonderful chart. Thinking of that spinning around and around and around, whether it's a day or lifetimes, or it doesn't matter the scale. But like that video with all the endless stream of morphing faces, it seems the script seems to be ever changing, and the moving target of, oh, what do I forgive now? To the ego is like, well, what new grievance can I entertain and nurture? And the Holy Spirit says, no, what new forgiveness opportunity can I learn from and see that I'm actually freer than I ever could have imagined on my own. So, yeah. And
I have a question. Sakina, did you ever do a past life regression?
I don't know what you'd call it. Yeah. I'm not sure what I would call what I've been through.
It's all the same content. Well, one of the content, so yeah. It's all past life. In that sense, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Thanks.
As you're saying that, Tim, I was thinking, it's kind of staggering sometimes to realize that what we're seem to be experiencing now, the course reminds us, was over long, long ago. So we're still reviewing past lives, and we call it the present in the context of how we think of time, anyway. We've already forgiven everything. We've already gone through countless whatevers of experiences to get to where we've forgiven everything and learned the true compassion of letting everyone off the hook for impossible crime that couldn't be committed. And so, yeah, I find that helpful when I allow myself to see that nothing happened in truth. Yeah. Let's see, who'd like to read the third paragraph? Who hasn't read them? Might like to read. Chris? Okay.
Yes. For our purposes, it would not be helpful to take any definite stand on reincarnation. A teacher of God should be as helpful to those who believe in it as to those who do not. If a definite stand were required of him, it would merely limit his usefulness as well as his own decision-making. Our course is not concerned with any concept that is not acceptable to anyone, regardless of his formal beliefs. His ego will be enough for him to cope with. I like that. I got enough on my plate already to think about all this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
His ego will be enough for him to cope with, and it is not the part of his wisdom, and it is not the part of wisdom to add sectarian controversies to his burdens. Nor would there be any advantage in his premature acceptance of the course merely because it advocates a long-held belief of his own. So it's sort of like, I like the now in paragraph 2. You know, we're dealing with this with our accepting the atonement right now, whatever our beliefs are, our belief system. And also, I don't think it says it right here, but even our beliefs are a block to the awareness of oneness, and we'll need to let those go at some point, or just at least look at them. So yeah, that was a nice line. His ego will be enough for him to cope with. You know, these are kind of like interesting things to think about, but it's not at the crux of what we're about, you know, the whole forgiveness and atonement and looking at the ego. And it's, you know, like if I'm feeling separate from you, that's more important to realize, well, why am I doing that, instead of feeling that we have the same interest, be they of the ego or of the Holy Spirit. You know, we all have the same split mind.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty right there just in every given moment, isn't it? To just notice when we're making an enemy instead of recognizing a long lost best friend in every person we meet or think about, huh? Yeah, in any specific
Yeah, and
situation.
I remember reading early on too, that arguing has no place in doing you're attaching yourself to some point of view. There is reincarnation or there isn't reincarnation, but you got to be on the debate stand and decide which one. That's not helping anybody.
It's sort of analogous to, is illusion A better than illusion B, or is it illusion C better? You know, I noticed that it says it would not be helpful to take any definite stand on reincarnation. Well, if reincarnation is about bodies appearing and disappearing in a world, then taking a definite stand would be like building a house on quicksand. You know, it's like, well, probably not a good idea to take a stand on quicksand, metaphorically, let alone build a house there, right? So
yeah, the other thing I remember that comes to mind, I think it was Ken talking about it, maybe it was in here, that time, we look at time as linear, something in the past, something right now, something in the future. When he was saying, really, time is holoographic. Everything is happening all at once. So in that sense, reincarnation could fit in there, all those past lives, but it's all happening. That's happening at the same time as I'm speaking right now is happening. Holographically, not spirally, however you want to call it. You know, it's more like a global round 3D thing instead of linear, just 2 dimensions.
Like everything everywhere all at once sort of thing?
Yes, I haven't seen that yet, but it's on my list. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of fun words. I actually, when I was reading this, what you were just, you and I were just riffing on, Chris, that thing of like, we've got enough with each moment to you know, in our forgiveness classroom. It reminded me actually, when I was making some notes here, of a quote from the Christian Bible. This is Matthew 6:34. And I thought this was actually pretty good. Take therefore no thought for the morrow. The morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, or the forgiveness classroom thereof. So my course translation would be: don't obsess over future fear or past dreams of sin by imprisoning the present with guilt. We don't need to run a backhoe to dig up prior projections. We've got plenty of ego left to look at and forgive right now. Anyway, so
I'm not sure. I think Donna has something. She's going to tell us a past life, maybe.
okay.
Wouldn't that be funny? No, actually, what I was going to share was that I think of it, reincarnation, as, for myself, it's just kind of a step in my process. You know, when it was interesting at one point. Now it's not interesting at all. But it got me to a point where I didn't want things changing. I wanted just the truth. I wanted to know the truth. And that's what propelled me into this course, actually. It
Yep.
was some years back, but it was, just something I kind of went through. And then it doesn't mean anything, good or bad, or it's not important, because here I am now.
Yep. And it's that eternal now that the Course is directed back to that helps us look at the parade of forms that seem to dance and like the feathers in the wind that it talks about somewhere else. It's like all these specifics that float around these wheels within wheels and endless cycles of scripts coming and going and scraps of this and bits of that but beyond that, there's an awareness that we all have that somehow, some way we know there's got to be more to all of the facades and all the forms that come and go.
Javier.
Oh,
I would like to ask something. So when the Course say now, the present, the now moment is always the decision maker, right? That is the now. So now and decision maker is synonym? No, not synonym. Cinnamon? No, synonym. No, I don't know. That one, the same. Sorry. Synonym, not cinnamon. Yeah, they are very similar.
It's a good spice regardless, right? Yeah. Well, yeah, because the decision maker really only works in the now moment. So, they're intertwined in the sense that, we can only decide now for one of two thought systems, right? So, yeah. And in that sense, we're either reincarnating our ego or reincarnating the Holy Spirit until we get off that wheel altogether and say, wait a minute, I'm at the center of the cyclone. I'm at the quiet center. Of course, talks about, the place that just looks calmly at all the stuff that's going around and around and dizzying. It's like, stop the world, I want to get off, kind of thing. But we're not stopping the world physically. We're just looking up from the moment of the peace that's possible in every now moment, right? Yeah.
One way of looking at all this is we're watching a replay of a past life right this second.
Exactly.
When you look at the screen, this is a replay.
Yeah. And then if you watch the replay, you have a replay, right?
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
What does sectarian mean in that sentence? Add sectarian controversies. Is that like spiritual or sectarian? What does it mean?
Well, sectarian, there's different sects, S-E-C-T-S, right? Not the other kind, but that's a sectarian one too, I suppose. But the idea of anything divided would have to be sectarian, right? Because, you talk about religious sects, religious, divisions.
A Course in Miracles sects?
Yeah. Anything that divides got to be part of this belief in separation, right? Yeah.
Oh, Betsy, how you doing? You got any comments or questions or anything so far?
Thank you. I'm trying to keep up. And I thought I would just volunteer today to read and then stay quiet the rest of the time.
Probably not a bad past life thing to do.
Do you want to read paragraph 4, Betsy?
If you're ready for me, yes, I'd be glad.
I think so. We're
Okay.
good. We're good.
It cannot be too strongly emphasized that this course aims at a complete reversal of thought. When this is finally accomplished, issues such as the validity of reincarnation becomes meaningless. Until then, they are likely to be merely controversial. The teacher of God is, therefore, wise to step away from all such questions, for he has much to teach and learn apart from them. He should both learn and teach that theoretical issues but waste time, draining it away from its appointed purpose. If there are aspects to any concept of or belief that will be helpful, he will be told about it. He will also be told how to use it. What more need he know?
Now, you wanted to just read, but just in case you have thoughts or comments about that, feel free.
Oh, I just find it, I find it, here I find a sense of humor, which sometimes I feel like I don't find that. But it's kind of funny, like, okay, just leave it alone because it's going to waste your time. And then it's on a need to know basis. If you need to know what to do with this, then you'll be told.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
that's great. That's great. Yeah, and I made some just a little note. That step away phrase always makes me think of the being pulled over by a patrol car kind of thought. And so my version of that is picturing Jesus or Holy Spirit, as our internal peace officer pulling us over and saying, step away from that thought system. In parentheses, the vehicle for making a big deal out of differences among illusory distinctions, such as glamorous or hideous. There's countless others, and no one will get hurt. But just step away from that thought system, and no one will get hurt. Basically, which is basically, I think, every time we look at the stuff going around the wheel, but we use every specific to get back to our right mind with Holy Spirit's help, and say, oh, this isn't a grievance. I could replace this grievance with a miracle. I could take this specific upset and see the setup with Holy Spirit's help, see that setup was not valid, let Holy Spirit throw it out of his courtroom, as he always will, and see that's like, oh, I could see peace instead of this. And I let myself and everyone else off the hook, and everyone that seems to be involved in a specific way becomes absolved of the guilt that I was projecting onto them. Yeah. Thanks. So who for numero 5 here? Anyone for paragraph 5? Marissa.
Does this mean that the teacher of God should not believe in reincarnation himself or discuss it with others who do? The answer is certainly not. If he does believe in reincarnation, it would be a mistake for him to renounce the belief unless his internal teacher so advised. And this is most unlikely. He might be advised that he is misusing the belief in some way, that it is detrimental to his pupil's advance or his own. Reinterpretation would then be recommended because it is necessary. All that must be recognized, however, is that birth was not the beginning and death is not the end. Yet even this much is not required of the beginner. He need merely accept the idea that what he knows is not necessarily all there is to learn. His journey has begun.
Comments, thoughts?
Yeah, it's another tool. It's a tool if it is for good, and we discard it if it is not for good, if it keeps us on the hamster wheel of death. Then we discard it. But yes, he's being quite practical. I mean, the whole manual is all practical. It's not it's not Shakespearean at all. It's very practical. So I love the Shakespeare. But,
yeah, takes us off the attack, defense, guilt, endless cycle of sin, guilt, and fear. Basically, yeah, exactly. The other word that jumped out to me at the beginning of sentence is reinterpretation would be recommended. So I was thinking, well, we can, instead of reincarnation, we could just use reinterpretation. An upgrade in the re department. So.
I almost said re-incarceration there by accident. I'm learning from you, Bruce.
Uh-oh. Now you're in trouble. Did someone else have a hand raised that I didn't see?
I just had a quick comment that, it seems like sometimes, Bruce, that you're changing these words around to mean whatever you want. And then I read in the in the book that words don't mean anything anyway. They're a block in themselves. So what the heck? Might as well.
Why not just give them all the Holy Spirit and don't let him
That's exactly right. Just
shake
give it
them
up,
out?
man.
Yeah, really. Thanks. Stephen, did you have something?
Yeah, kind of. About the now thing. Holy Spirit is only in the present. We get that from in here. That's the first thing, and the next thing is the way I read the course. Reincarnation is ridiculous. I spent a couple months. I had a thought one day, just driving down the. Oh yeah, I was never born, and I spent a couple months looking at that every now and then, and it really was helpful in bringing that gentle smile that we're all looking for. Reincarnation, what? We were never born. We cannot die, and so reincarnation. Jesus seems to refer to it in a few places in the course, but reincarnation to me is just totally. There's no past. There's a lot about that in the course. There's no future, so we can't look forward to maybe a better life. We love this stuff because the way I see it, ego loves this stuff. And because of that, I think it's kind of cute, but tarot cards are kind of cute too. And I'm from New Orleans. Voodoo seems. I mean, there are shops and a lot of people. In San Antonio, we have the brujas and the brujos. The witch doctors and the people who help us to see the future and talk to people who are die. That's all helpful to a lot of people, and I'm not discounting that. But as a serious course student, I want to smile about this because reincarnation to me totally ridiculous. And this fourth paragraph says that in such a much nicer way than I just did. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think even just to back it up, just incarnation is ridiculous, right? I mean, the idea of that, I mean, the course really says that in so many ways. So the idea, what? You think you could limit yourself to a body, a specific thing? I mean, and a moment ago, we were talking about the humor in the course. And I do think that was the thought that I wanted to share in response to what was said a moment ago. It's like, I think when we read this stuff aloud together, we see the humor that's there because we're sort of we're joining with a shared interest of wanting to see beyond the specific and wanting to see beyond our personal interest to a shared interest of going home together. And that's where we start to see the humor. And like, how could we take this unlimited spirit that we all are and squeeze it and smash it and compress it down into these little pipsqueaky things we call bodies that, if in a good, we take care of them, maybe last a century, which is still just like a blip on a cosmic radar of a cosmic dream. It's like, how absurd is that? How could we possibly, identify? But because our minds are so powerful, sure enough, we think we did until we're ready to wake up from that and just say, well, maybe that's outrageously funny. Yeah, thanks.
Javier is waving, and then Marissa.
Thanks.
Yeah, because Spanish, it's coming from Latin, the old language.
Mm-hmm.
Reincarnation, reencarnación. Re is double. We're redoing something.
Mm-hmm.
Carnation comes from carne. Carne
Meat.
means meat.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it's not talking about, I think that it's not talking about us as a mind. It's talking about as a body, as a meat, flesh.
Mm-hmm.
The word carne is meat in Spanish. So
Yep.
reincarnation, it's from that, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're stuffing ourselves into human sausages over and over again. Something like that. Pretty silly with legs and arms and heads and stuff. But yeah. If you haven't seen the Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's a wonderful scene with the sausage fingers. Anyway, it's pretty funny. Let's see. Marissa, that's right. Thank you. Keep me on track.
I was thinking about what we're talking about, reincarnation, of course, but I brought this up in our last study group, Bruce and Lisa, that when Helen visited Israel and was looking for her grave from a previous life, and she heard in her mind Jesus say, "Let the dead bury the dead."
Yeah.
And in other words, don't do it. And I just thought that was interesting. And another point I wanted to bring up was that there's a lot of chiding that Jesus does to the ego. They're insults, but I'll just name a couple. He says, like in chapter 16, his voice has spoken clearly, and yet you have so little faith in what you heard, because you have preferred to place still greater faith in the disaster you had made. And another one, he says, just the knowledge is always stable, and it's quite evident that you are not. So they're all over the place.
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, a few years ago, better part of a decade ago, I realized I had so many little smiley faces in the margins of my second or third book that I gave a little talk on the humor in the course at Estes Park, and had a lot of fun with it. So
Sorry,
I'll send anyone a link who wants to see it. I did a recap of it for the school here. Yeah, but yeah, there's a huge amount of humor in the course, and I think it's when we look at that together, as we're doing now, metaphorically, and which just reflects our decision to look with Holy Spirit at the ego, and we see that in the most kind-hearted way possible, this course lampoons the ego on every line. I mean, it's just outrageously funny, seen from the Holy Spirit's perspective, that we would, I think one of the other ones that I'm sure I've got a smiley next to is, it's I'll paraphrase, it's outrageous that, that our I can find it quick enough. It's that's basically masochism would be so deeply cherished. Basically, I think it's the deeply cherished is the phrase I could find quick enough. But because we're nuts to take this rehashing the same content over and over again with all these different forms, whether we want to call it reincarnation or regrievance or re-misinterpretation, but over and over again, we're taking the same silly thought system and, putting it out in a different form, different cast of characters, like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, the characters come and go, but it's the same story over and over and over again, the same silly story. Yeah.
I have two quick comments. I'm going to go through the course, and wherever it says the body, I'm going to put in the meat. What is the meat? Where's the meat? And then, but more importantly,
yeah.
I was thinking, because I certainly don't want to not do 25 and 26 or even get started on them. But we can start class a little earlier next Monday at like around 5:30, and I can quickly go through 25 and 26, and then Stephen at 6 o'clock can do number 27. So we will cover them. And
okay.
And then Lorraine has something.
Okay.
Yeah, what I was thinking was that, like we might do with any belief that we hold, in order to kind of dismantle our thought system, is just put this as a question to ourselves. If we do believe in it, like, why do I have this belief? What does this belief hold for me? And that might lead to understanding the false beliefs that lead to fear and sin and, all the other things that the ego holds. So it might be useful in that way.
Yep. Yeah. And anything we give to that inner kindness teacher can be turned around, no matter what the specific is. Huh? Yep. And thank you, Tim. I knew I was running out of time, but I thought there's so much in this, just this one section to cover. So I'll go ahead and read the last paragraph 6 here. The emphasis of this course always remains the same. It is at this moment that complete salvation is offered you, and it is this moment that you can accept it. This is still your one responsibility. Atonement might be equated with total escape from the past and total lack of interest in the future. Heaven is here. There is nowhere else. Heaven is now. There is no other time. No teaching that does not lead to this is of concern to God's teachers. All beliefs will point to this if properly interpreted. In this sense, it can be said that their truth lies in their usefulness. All beliefs that lead to progress should be honored. This is the sole criterion this course requires. No more than this is necessary. It's like, okay, we got wheat, we don't need chaff. Just go and let the chaff blow away and the wheat'll stay, right? So what we really want. I just did want to make a couple of comments on the next two sections. That the quick answer to number 25, are psychic powers desirable? Nah. And then the quick answer to number 26, can God be reached directly? Sure. And there's an unlisted 800 number, and Tim can email it to you. But yeah, that's anyway. But yeah, rather than spend just not enough time on each of those, it's probably a good idea to give them a little overview. But I was thinking that the reincarnation topic and the psychic powers topic are really very similar in the sense that they both deal with again, that bottom left quadrant of Ken's chart, where it's like we've taken mind that we don't want to look at the guilt there, so we've squeezed that little middle section out with ego's help to where it's just almost non-existent. So don't go there, don't go to that mind stuff, because that's where the guilt is. So now all that's left is really that bottom third, which seems to occupy the whole chart in our mind. And so we say, well, gosh, there's these lifetimes, and is this more important? Is this better? Is this worse? Is this different? And then we get all obsessed about all the specifics, and just like that video with all the faces going by and morphing one to the other. And so, oh, this is better than, oh no, that's no, now let's look at this. And it's, the endless distractions. But the psychic powers are kind of the same thing. It's like, can I fix the dream? Can I make the dream different? Can I modify? Can I move over there? Can I remodel this part of the dream? Anyway, all that kind of crazy stuff. So anyway, thank you all, and I appreciate sharing this time with you. So
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. Very good.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank
Put on a
you.
really good show.
Thanks, everybody.
Muchas gracias.
Have a wonderful.
De nada.
See you all in the next lifetime.
Exactly.
Ooh, that's good.
Mañana, the next lifetime, right?